No one came for my son's surgery. 3 days later, my mom texted, "We need $10,000 for your sister's wedding dress." I sent her $1 with a note, "Buy a veil." Then I froze their access to my accounts. The next morning, the bank manager called. This isn't just a story about money. It's about a betrayal so profound it cracked open everything I thought I knew about family, all while my 7-year-old son lay recovering from emergency surgery. Just 3 days after I sat alone in a hospital, terrified and praying for my child, the family who couldn't be bothered to visit then demanded $10,000 for a wedding dress. To understand how we got to that breaking point, you need to hear about my life, a life where I, Carolyn, at 34, a single mom with a demanding finance career, always felt like the responsible one. I grew up in suburban Chicago with my parents, Martha and Frank, and my younger sister, Vanessa. From my earliest memories, there was an unspoken rule. Vanessa was the golden child, and I was the reliable one. Our photo albums told the story. Vanessa in dance costumes, piles of Christmas gifts, celebrated for every little thing. Me? I learned early to take care of myself. By 16, I was working at the grocery store, not because we needed the money, we were comfortably middle class, but because my parents made it clear my wants were my responsibility. When college applications came around, I remember sitting at the kitchen table, my acceptance to Northwestern in my hand, and my parents exchanging nervous glances. "We just don't have that kind of money set aside for you," Carolyn, my mom said, stirring her coffee. What she didn't say was they were saving for Vanessa, who was 2 years behind me. So I took out student loans, worked 30 hours a week, and clawed my way to a business degree. Meanwhile, Vanessa floated through 3 different universities over 6 years, changing majors constantly, with my parents covering every single cent. My first job was a bank teller. I was 22, eager to pay off those loans, renting a tiny studio, packing lunches to save every penny. I called my parents, so proud, to tell them about my first promotion. The conversation was cut short because they were helping Vanessa move into another new apartment after she dropped out of college again. At 25, I met Brian. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to appreciate my practical nature. 8 months later, we were married. A small ceremony my parents complained was too modest. We always imagined giving one of our daughters a proper wedding, my mom sighed, even though they contributed nothing. Brian and I worked hard, and within 2 years, I was pregnant with Dylan. That's when things really took off for me professionally. I got my biggest promotion yet, financial advisor at a prestigious Chicago firm. Brian seemed supportive at first, but after Dylan was born, he changed. Late nights, irritated by a crying baby, he eventually admitted he wasn't ready for fatherhood. By the time Dylan was 2, our divorce was final. Brian pays child support, but his involvement in Dylan's life is minimal. Every other weekend became once a month, then just occasional holidays. I don't badmouth him to Dylan, but the truth is, I'm raising our son essentially alone. Dylan is the sweetest little boy, thoughtful, curious, incredibly resilient despite his health issues. He was born with a minor heart murmur and is prone to respiratory infections. The medical bills have been substantial, but my career allows me to provide for him. What I can't give him is an extended family who truly cares. Over the years, a pattern with my parents and sister emerged. They rarely called or visited unless they needed something. And increasingly, what they needed was money. First, it was my parents needing help refinancing their home after they'd taken out a second mortgage for Vanessa's abandoned graduate school attempt. I helped them secure a better rate and covered the closing costs. That was $5,000 I'd been saving for a family vacation with Dylan. Then came Vanessa's credit card debt, $12,000 from clothes and weekend trips. My parents called in a panic, saying Vanessa was crying every night, terrified of debt collectors. I created a payment plan and covered the first 4 months to get her back on track. Each time, I got effusive thanks and promises that things would be different. And each time, months would pass with no contact until the next crisis. Meanwhile, when I mentioned Dylan's achievements or health concerns, I got distracted responses or quick subject changes. Your sister is just going through a difficult time right now, my mother would say. When I expressed frustration at this one-sided relationship, it was always, family helps family. You're just better with money, Carolyn. It's always come easy to you. Nothing about my financial stability came easy. I worked 60-hour weeks while raising a child alone. I budgeted every dollar. I sacrificed vacations, new clothes, dinners out to build security for Dylan and myself. But in my family's narrative, I was simply lucky, as if my success had fallen from the sky. This was the dynamic I'd reluctantly accepted, the responsible daughter, always expected to rescue everyone else, receiving minimal emotional support in return. I'd set some boundaries, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened after Dylan's surgery. Last Wednesday started like any other school day. I was making Dylan's lunch, turkey sandwich, crusts cut off, apple slices, a small cookie, when he came into the kitchen, clutching his stomach. "Mommy, my tummy really hurts," he said, his face pale and pinched with pain. My first thought was a stomach bug. There'd been one going around his second-grade class. No fever. I gave him some water. But within 20 minutes, he was curled up on the couch, crying. The pain was getting worse, now concentrated on his right side. Alarm bells screamed in my head. Right side, abdominal pain, appendicitis. I didn't hesitate. I called my boss, explaining I had a family emergency, scooped up Dylan, and drove straight to the emergency room. The triage nurse took one look at Dylan and immediately brought us back. Within an hour, a doctor confirmed my fears: acute appendicitis. Dylan needed emergency surgery before it ruptured. "We need to operate within the next 2 hours," Dr. Bennett explained. "The good news is, it's a common procedure, but he'll need to stay in the hospital for at least 2 days. As they prepared him for testing, I stepped into the hallway, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I called my mother. "Mom," I choked out when she answered. "Dylan has appendicitis. We're at Memorial Hospital. They're prepping him for emergency surgery right now. I'm really scared. Can you and Dad come?" There was a pause. A long, agonizing pause. "Oh, honey. Today I have my standing hair appointment at 11 o'clock, and your father was going to clean the gutters." I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. "Mom, your grandson is having emergency surgery. The hair appointment can wait." "Well, let me talk to your father and see what we can do," she said, sounding put out. "What time is the surgery?" "Within the next 2 hours. Please hurry." "We'll see what we can do, Caroline. Don't be so dramatic. Appendectomies are routine these days." I ended the call and immediately dialed Vanessa. Voicemail. I sent a text explaining the situation, begging her to come if she could. Then I returned to Dylan's side, forcing a calm expression I didn't feel. The next few hours were a blur. Dylan was taken for surgery, and I was directed to a waiting area. I sat there alone, watching other families support each other, husbands comforting wives, grandparents distracting siblings. And there I was, checking my phone every 5 minutes, hoping for some response. After an hour, my mother texted, "Let us know when he is out of surgery. Your father has a backache today, so driving would be difficult." Nothing from Vanessa. A kind nurse named Janet noticed me sitting alone and brought me a cup of coffee. "Is someone coming to sit with you, Han?" she asked. I just shook my head, unable to speak without crying. "Well, I'll check on you when I can," she promised, patting my shoulder. "The surgical team for appendectomies is excellent here. Your little boy is in good hands." 2 hours later, Dr. Bennett found me. "The surgery went perfectly," he said with a reassuring smile. "We caught it before it ruptured. Dylan is in recovery now. You can see him in about 20 minutes. The relief was overwhelming. I thanked him profusely, then immediately texted my parents and Vanessa with the good news. My mother responded with a thumbs-up emoji. My father sent, "Great news. Tell the little guy we love him." Vanessa finally responded an hour later, "Glad he is okay." Not one of them asked if I needed anything. Not one of them offered to visit. Dylan was groggy when I first saw him, his small body so vulnerable in the hospital bed, connected to IVs and monitoring equipment. When his eyes fluttered open and he weakly said, "Mommy," I nearly broke down. I'm right here, sweetheart, I assured him, holding his hand. The doctor fixed your tummy. You were so brave. He looked around the room. Is Grandma here? Or Grandpa? I swallowed hard. Not right now, buddy. They sent their love, though. They're so proud of how brave you've been. Will they come tomorrow? He asked before drifting back to sleep. Maybe, I said, though I already knew the answer. The next 2 days were exhausting. I slept in a recliner next to Dylan's bed, waking whenever he did. I worked remotely on my laptop during his naps, trying to keep up with urgent client matters. The hospital Wi-Fi was spotty, and I had to step into the hallway for client calls, constantly worrying about being away from Dylan even for 15 minutes. I sent regular updates to my family with photos of Dylan's recovery. Their responses grew briefer. My mother asked if I'd be able to join them for Sunday dinner that weekend. Vanessa sent a meme about hospitals. My father didn't respond at all. No one visited. No flowers arrived. No offers to bring food or sit with Dylan so I could shower. By Friday afternoon, when Dylan was discharged, my resentment had hardened into something cold and solid in my chest. As I helped my son carefully into the car, mindful of his incision, I made a silent promise. Something would have to change. At home, I settled Dylan on the couch with his favorite stuffed dinosaur and a Disney movie. I ordered pizza, a special treat, and sat beside him, stroking his hair as he dozed, still weak from surgery and medication. "Mommy," he asked during a quiet moment, "are Grandma and Grandpa mad at me?" "No, sweetie," I said, my heart breaking. "Why would you think that?" "Because they didn't come see me in the hospital. Mason's grandparents brought him a teddy bear when he broke his arm." I took a deep breath. "Grandma and Grandpa love you very much. They've just been very busy. It's not your fault at all." He seemed to accept it, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. At 7 years old, he was already learning a painful lesson about our family's priorities. That night, after Dylan was asleep, I finally allowed myself to cry. I cried for my son, who deserved so much more support. I cried for myself, always giving, rarely receiving. And beneath the sadness was a simmering anger that would soon boil over in ways my family never expected. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. Dylan was recovering well, moving more comfortably, even asking for pancakes. His appetite returning was a good sign. As I mixed the batter, my phone chimed. A text from my mother. "How is Dylan feeling?" It was the first time she'd initiated contact since before the surgery. I texted back, "Much better, thanks. Eating well today and moving around more easily." I set the phone down. Before the first pancake had even started to bubble, my phone chimed again. I glanced at the screen and nearly dropped the spatula. "Good to hear. Listen, we need to talk about something important. Vanessa is engaged. Tyler proposed last night. She needs $10,000 for her dream wedding dress. Vera Wong. Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The boutique is holding it, but needs a deposit by tomorrow. Can you transfer the money today? Family helps family." I stared at the message, reading it 3 times. My son had just had emergency surgery. No one from my family had visited or offered any meaningful support. And now, 3 days later, they wanted $10,000 for a wedding dress. I flipped the pancake, which had burned on one side, and tried to compose myself. My first instinct was to fire back an angry message, but Dylan was at the kitchen island, watching me with curious eyes. "Is that Grandma?" he asked hopefully. "Yes, buddy." She says hi. The lie tasted bitter. "Your pancake is almost ready." I decided not to respond immediately. I served Dylan his breakfast, made sure he took his medication, and settled him with Legos. Then I returned to my phone. 3 more messages. From Mom. "Did you see my text about Vanessa's dress? They need an answer today." From Dad. "Your mother told you about the dress. Vanessa found the one. $10,000. I know it sounds like a lot, but this is her special day. Call us." From Mom again. "The boutique closes at 5 today. You are the only one with money to spare. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." I sat at the kitchen table, a cold feeling spreading through my chest. Money to spare? After paying thousands in medical bills my insurance didn't fully cover? After taking unpaid time off work to care for my son? My phone rang. It was my father. Carolyn, he said without preamble, did you get your mother's messages about the dress? I did, I said carefully. I'm a little surprised by the timing. What does timing have to do with anything? Your sister is getting married. Tyler comes from money, and they're expecting a certain level of wedding. The dress is non-negotiable. Dad, I said, my voice rising. Dylan just had surgery. I've been dealing with that alone. I have medical bills, and I've missed work. $10,000 for a dress is not something I can just pull out of thin air. He scoffed. You work in finance. We know you make good money. This is not the time to be selfish. Vanessa never asks you for anything. I nearly choked at that blatant lie. Dad, she has never once called to check on Dylan. Not once during his hospital stay. Did she even tell you he had surgery? We've all been busy. Tyler's parents are planning an engagement party, and there's been a lot to coordinate. This dress is a limited opportunity. Vanessa tried it on yesterday, and it's perfect. She deserves this. The conversation continued in this vein for several minutes. My father dismissed every concern I raised, repeatedly emphasizing family obligation and Vanessa's once-in-a-lifetime event. After hanging up, I received a call from my mother. Then another text, this one with photos of Vanessa in what I assumed was the dress, a massive ball gown, with intricate beading and a cathedral train. It looked like something from a Disney movie, impractical and ostentatious. Then came the text that broke me. Thanks in advance. You're the best. Can't wait for you to see me walk down the aisle in this. Tyler's family is so impressed with it. I need your banking details to give to the boutique for the deposit. Love you. Not a single word about Dylan. Not even a pretense of concern for her nephew who had just undergone emergency surgery. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the phone, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't just anger, it was clarity. I had been used by my family for years, treated as nothing more than a convenient ATM, and I had allowed it to happen. Even worse, I had taught Dylan by example that this was what family relationships should look like, one-sided, exploitative, and devoid of genuine care. As a financial advisor, I had counseled clients about financial boundaries and even recognized signs of financial abuse in their relationships. Yet, I had failed to apply the same standards to my own family. I had enabled their behavior time and again, always hoping the next time would be different. Looking at my financial situation objectively, I was comfortable, but not wealthy. I had a mortgage on a modest 3-bedroom home. I had a college fund for Dylan that was growing steadily, but needed years more contributions. My emergency fund had already been dipped into by Dylan's surgery. And my retirement savings were on track, but certainly not excessive. The $10,000 they were demanding would mean postponing necessary repairs to my home, reducing Dylan's extracurricular activities, or withdrawing from my own retirement savings. All for a dress that would be worn once, for a sister who couldn't be bothered to visit her nephew in the hospital, or even ask meaningfully about his recovery. As I processed these thoughts, a final text came through from my mother. We know this is a big ask, but remember all we have done for you over the years. Family supports each other. Your sister would do the same for you. That was when I knew exactly what I needed to do. That afternoon, while Dylan napped, I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. As a financial advisor, I had the skills and knowledge to handle this strategically, not emotionally, though believe me, I was feeling plenty of emotions. First, I reviewed my own accounts and financial entanglements with my family. Years ago, when my father had a brief health scare, I had created a joint emergency account with my parents. I'd initially deposited $5,000 and added small amounts over time, intending it for a genuine crisis. The account now held just over $8,000. Out of curiosity, I checked the transaction history. What I found stunned me. Dozens of small withdrawals over the past year, $200 here, $300 there, none of which had been discussed with me. The most recent withdrawal, just last week while Dylan was in the hospital, had been for $600, with a memo line reading advance for dress shopping. They had already been using this emergency fund for Vanessa's wedding expenses without even telling me. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to think clearly. This wasn't the time for an emotional reaction. This was the time for setting firm boundaries. During my training as a financial advisor, I'd attended a seminar on financial abuse. The instructor emphasized that financial boundaries, once violated, needed to be reestablished decisively and completely. Half measures only invited further exploitation. I picked up my phone and called Robert, the manager at my bank branch, who had become something of a mentor to me. "Carolyn," he greeted me warmly. "How is Dylan doing?" I heard about his appendix. At least someone had been paying attention to my family crisis. I updated him briefly on Dylan's recovery, then explained why I was calling. "I need to make some changes to my accounts, particularly regarding authorized access. And I'd like your advice on the best way to handle this." I laid out the basics: the joint emergency account, the unauthorized withdrawals, the current demand for $10,000. Robert listened without interrupting. "Unfortunately, this type of family financial entanglement is more common than you might think," he said when I finished. "The good news is, we can take steps immediately to protect your assets." With Robert's guidance, I spent the next hour creating a comprehensive plan. First, I would freeze the joint emergency account so no further withdrawals could be made without my in-person authorization. Second, I would establish a new, separate college fund for Dylan with ironclad protections, making it impossible for anyone but him to access the money, and only for educational purposes. Third, I would document the history of financial requests and contributions to create a clear record of the pattern. Fourth, I would send a token response to make my position clear before they attempted to access the emergency fund again. "Are you sure about this last part?" Robert asked. "It might escalate the situation." "I am sure," I said firmly. "This has been building for years. If I don't make a clear statement now, nothing will change." After ending the call with Robert, I logged into my banking app. I initiated a $1 transfer to my sister's account with a memo line that read, "By a veil. This is all you get after abandoning Dylan." Then I completed the paperwork to freeze access to the emergency account and changed all permissions. I also transferred the remaining balance to a new account in my name only, leaving a symbolic $100 behind. I set up the new educational trust for Dylan with the strictest controls available. No one, not my parents, not Vanessa, not even me, would be able to withdraw that money for anything other than educational expenses. It was now completely protected. As I worked, I felt a strange mix of emotions. There was anger, certainly, but also a growing sense of empowerment. For years, I had accepted my assigned role in the family, the responsible one, the provider, the ATM. For the first time, I was taking control of my own financial boundaries and, by extension, my relationship with my family. I knew there would be backlash. My mother would cry and accuse me of being selfish. My father would make veiled threats about family loyalty. Vanessa would alternate between sweet-talking and vicious accusations. I had seen this pattern before, whenever I attempted even minor boundary setting. But this time would be different. This time, I had concrete protection in place. This time, I was thinking not just of myself, but of the example I was setting for Dylan. What kind of relationships did I want him to accept as normal? What kind of treatment did I want him to believe he deserved? As I finalized the last details, I heard Dylan calling for me from his bedroom. I closed my laptop, took a deep breath, and went to check on my son. Whatever storm was coming, I was prepared to weather it for both our sakes. Monday morning arrived with the predicted storm. I had just dropped Dylan off at school. He'd insisted he felt well enough to go, though I made arrangements for limited activity, and arrived at my office when my phone exploded with notifications. 6 missed calls from my mother, 4 from my father, 12 text messages from Vanessa, 2 voicemails. I settled at my desk and steeled myself before checking the first voicemail. It was my mother, her voice tearful and frantic. "Caroline Elizabeth, what is the meaning of this $1? Is this some kind of joke? The boutique needs the deposit by noon today or Vanessa loses the dress. Call me immediately." The second voicemail was even more emotional. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this is your sister's future happiness at stake. We raised you better than this. Your father is furious. Fix this mistake right now." The text messages ranged from Vanessa's initial confusion, "Hey sis, there must be some mistake with the transfer," to sweet-talking, "Please, Caroline, you know how much this means to me," to outright hostility, "You've always been jealous of me. If you ruin this for me, I will never forgive you. I put my phone on silent and tried to focus on work. But by 10:30, my assistant knocked on my door. Caroline, your mother is here. She seems very upset. Should I send her in or tell her you're in a meeting? I sighed. I had expected this, though not quite so quickly. Send her in, please. And Lauren? No interruptions for the next 20 minutes, regardless of what you might hear. My assistant nodded, her expression sympathetic but curious. A moment later, my mother burst into the office, her face blotchy with tears and anger. She didn't bother with a greeting. What have you done to the emergency account? Your father tried to withdraw the money for Vanessa's dress deposit, and the teller said it was frozen. Then we discovered you emptied it except for $100. This is not just your money, Carolyn. I remained seated, keeping my voice calm and professional. That account was created by me for genuine emergencies, Mom. Not for wedding dresses. Not for the regular withdrawals you and Dad have been making without my knowledge or consent. We are your parents. We don't need your consent to use family money. It is not family money, Mom. It is my money that I earned and set aside in case you or Dad had a health crisis or some other genuine emergency. Over the past year, you have withdrawn nearly $4,000 in small amounts without once mentioning it to me. She waved her hand dismissively. Small expenses. Nothing worth bothering you about. But this dress is important, Caroline. The boutique will not hold it past noon. Vanessa is devastated. Dylan had emergency surgery last week, I said quietly. None of you bothered to visit him or offer any meaningful support. He asked me if his grandparents were mad at him because they didn't come to the hospital. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of shame cross my mother's face, but it was quickly replaced by indignation. We were busy, and hospitals are depressing. We send our love. A text message is not support, Mom. Being there for family during a crisis, that is support. A $10,000 wedding dress is not an emergency. My mother's voice rose, and I was grateful for my office's solid door. You have always been jealous of Vanessa, always trying to make her special moments about you. First, you refused to help, then you sent $1 as some kind of cruel joke. It was not a joke. It was a statement. I am done being the family ATM while receiving nothing but token attention in return. I have my own family to think about, Dylan. My priority is his well-being and future, not Vanessa's one-day princess fantasy. The argument escalated from there. My mother's voice grew louder until I was certain everyone in the office could hear. She brought up every perceived slight from childhood, accused me of ingratitude for all the sacrifices they had made for me, and eventually resorted to threats. If you don't fix this right now, you can consider yourself no longer part of this family. Something inside me went very still at those words. Is that really how you measure family, Mom? By financial transactions? Because if withdrawing financial support means I'm not family, then what does it mean that none of you provided emotional support when Dylan was in surgery? Were you already not acting like family then? She had no answer for that. Instead, she grabbed her purse and stood up. This is not over. Your father will be calling you. You have until noon to make this right. As she stormed toward the door, she turned back with a final shot, and don't bother coming to Sunday dinner anymore if this is how you treat family. After she left, I sat at my desk, shaking slightly, but feeling strangely calm. I had expected anger, but the reality of facing it was still jarring. My assistant poked her head in a few minutes later. Everything okay? I think the entire floor heard parts of that. I gave her a weak smile. Family drama. Nothing to worry about. But by lunchtime, things had escalated further. My father called 4 more times. I sent each to voicemail. Vanessa's texts became increasingly frantic and then abusive. I muted the conversation. At 1:15, I received an unexpected call from Robert at the bank. Carolyn, I wanted to give you a heads up. Your parents just left my office. They were trying to override the freeze on the joint account, claiming it was an emergency situation and that you were having mental health issues preventing you from making rational decisions. I gasped. They what? They also attempted to file a fraud report, claiming you had unlawfully transferred funds out of a joint account. I explained that as the primary account holder who created and primarily funded the account, you were within your rights to make those changes. I appreciate the call, Robert. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. No need to apologize. I wanted you to know they may try other avenues. They mentioned possibly contacting your firm's management to discuss your concerning behavior. I thought you should be prepared. After thanking Robert again, I immediately went to my supervisor's office to explain the situation before my parents could call with false claims about my mental stability. Nancy, my supervisor for 5 years, listened with growing concern. I had no idea you were dealing with this kind of family pressure, Caroline, she said when I finished. If they do call, I will handle it appropriately, and if you need any time off to deal with this, just let me know. By the end of the workday, I had received notice that my parents had attempted to make 3 separate withdrawals from the now frozen emergency account, each declined by the system I had put in place. When I picked up Dylan from his after-school program, I was exhausted from the emotional warfare, but resolute in my decision. Something would have to give, and for once, it would not be me. Tuesday evening, my phone rang with my father's number. I had been ignoring their calls all day, but something told me to answer this one. Carolyn. My father's voice was tight with controlled anger. We need to have a family meeting tonight. 7 o'clock. At our house. I can't do tonight, Dad. Dylan is still recovering, and I don't want to leave him with a sitter so soon after his surgery. Then bring him. This needs to be resolved immediately. Is this about Vanessa's dress? Because my answer hasn't changed. This is about much more than the dress. You have made serious accusations and taken actions that affect this entire family. 7 o'clock. He hung up without waiting for my response. I stood in my kitchen, considering my options. I could refuse to go, but that would only escalate the situation further. If this confrontation was inevitable, perhaps it was better to face it directly and on my terms. I called my neighbor, Miss Jenkins, a retired teacher who had become a friend and occasional backup caregiver for Dylan. She readily agreed to watch him for a few hours, understanding from my tone that this was important. Take all the time you need, she assured me. Dylan and I will bake cookies and watch that space documentary he's been talking about. Before leaving, I gathered documentation. I had prepared a spreadsheet detailing every financial contribution I had made to my family over the past decade, totaling more than $50,000. Bank statements showing the unauthorized withdrawals from the emergency account, and copies of text messages showing the pattern of contact only when money was needed. Armed with evidence and resolve, I drove to my parents' house, the same split-level home where I had grown up. As I parked, I noticed Vanessa's car already there, along with an unfamiliar luxury SUV that I guessed belonged to her fiancé, Tyler. My mother answered the door without a greeting, simply turning and walking toward the living room where the others waited. My father sat in his recliner, his position of authority since my childhood. Vanessa and a tall, well-dressed man I assumed was Tyler sat on the couch. Everyone looked up as I entered, their expressions ranging from anger to discomfort. Sit down, my father instructed, pointing to a dining chair that had been placed opposite everyone else, the hot seat. I remained standing. Before we start, I want to be clear about something. I am here to discuss the pattern of financial and emotional exploitation that has characterized our family relationships for years. I am not here to be guilt, manipulated, or bullied into providing money for Vanessa's wedding. Exploited? Vanessa stood up, her face flushed. Are you serious right now? Just because I asked for help with my wedding dress. This is not about just the dress, Vanessa. This is about years of one-sided support, about the fact that none of you showed up when Dylan was in surgery, and about the unauthorized withdrawals from the emergency account I established. What unauthorized withdrawals? Tyler spoke for the first time, looking confused. What emergency account? I realized in that moment that Vanessa's fiancé likely had no idea about the family's financial dynamics. This was confirmed when my mother quickly interjected, "That is not relevant to the current discussion, Tyler. We're here to talk about Caroline's refusal to help with wedding expenses." I addressed Tyler directly. I created an emergency fund for my parents years ago. Without my knowledge, they have been making regular withdrawals, including funds for Vanessa's wedding preparations. When I discovered this and froze the account, they tried to claim I was mentally unstable to the bank manager. Tyler's eyebrows shot up and he turned to look at Vanessa. Is this true? You told me your sister refused to contribute to our wedding, not that your parents were already using her money without permission. Vanessa looked trapped. It's not like that. Mom and Dad said the account was for family needs, and the wedding is a family need. 10,000 for a dress is not a need, I said firmly. And speaking of the dress, Tyler, did you know that was the amount being requested? Tyler's expression darkened. 10,000? Vanessa told me the dress budget was $2,000, which I already thought was excessive. The room fell silent. My mother glared at me for revealing this information, while Vanessa suddenly became very interested in her manicure. I pulled out the folder of documentation I had brought. I think it is time we put all the cards on the table. This is a record of every financial contribution I have made to this family over the past 10 years. I handed copies to each person in the room and continued speaking as they looked at the spreadsheet. $53,820. That includes helping with the refinance of this house, paying off Vanessa's credit card debt twice, covering Dad's medical bills when he had pneumonia, and dozens of smaller loans that were never repaid. What it does not include is any record of emotional support flowing in the other direction. The room remained silent as they absorbed the information. Tyler looked increasingly uncomfortable, darting glances at Vanessa and my parents. Last week, my 7-year-old son had emergency surgery. I called each of you asking for support. Not money, just your presence. None of you showed up, not once, during his 3-day hospital stay. Dylan asked me if his grandparents were mad at him because they didn't visit. My mother had the grace to look ashamed, but my father maintained his defensive posture. We explained why we couldn't come. You are making this into something it's not. Am I? Because 3 days after you couldn't be bothered to visit your grandson in the hospital, you demanded $10,000 for a wedding dress. How exactly should I interpret those priorities? I turned to Tyler again. Did you know about Dylan's surgery? He shook his head slowly. No, I had no idea. Vanessa shot me a venomous look. Stop trying to make Tyler think badly of us. This is just your jealousy talking. You have always resented that Mom and Dad love me more. The room went deadly quiet at her outburst. The truth that had always been understood but never spoken aloud hung in the air between us. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Vanessa, that is not true. We love both our daughters equally. But the damage was done. Tyler was now looking at his fiancée with new eyes, and my mother could not meet my gaze. I took a deep breath and delivered the speech I had been preparing since Sunday. Family means showing up for each other. It means celebrating successes and providing support during crisis. It means care flows in both directions, not just one way. For years, I have been the one expected to give, financially, emotionally, practically, while receiving token acknowledgement in return. That ends today. I am not cutting contact with this family. I am not saying I will never help in a genuine emergency. But I am establishing firm boundaries. No more financial support without genuine relationship. No more one-sided giving. No more treating me like a convenient ATM while ignoring my son. I looked each of them in the eye before continuing. The money I have saved is for Dylan's future and our security. It is not available for designer wedding dresses or any other non-essential expenses. The emergency account will remain frozen until we have rebuilt trust, which will take time and effort on all parts. If you want a relationship with me and with Dylan, you are welcome to it, but it must be based on mutual care and respect, not financial transactions. The choice is yours. I stood up, gathering my purse and the folder of documentation. No one spoke as I walked toward the door. Just as I reached it, Tyler's voice stopped me. Caroline, I want to apologize. I had no idea about any of this, especially about your son's surgery. For what it's worth, I think you are absolutely right about family priorities. I nodded my thanks to him, noting Vanessa's shocked expression, and left without another word. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in years, as if a burden I had carried so long I had forgotten it was there had finally been lifted from my shoulders. 2 months have passed since that showdown in my parents' living room, and much has changed. Dylan has fully recovered from his surgery, back to his energetic self, riding his bike and building elaborate Lego structures across his bedroom floor. The physical healing was straightforward. The emotional landscape has been more complicated. For the first 3 weeks after the confrontation, there was complete silence from my family. No calls, no texts, not even the usual social media interactions. I used that time to focus on Dylan and myself, establishing new routines and priorities, free from the constant background anxiety of anticipating the next financial request. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Morgan, who specializes in family dynamics and boundary setting. Our weekly sessions have helped me recognize patterns I had normalized for so long, the subtle manipulation techniques, the emotional withholding, the implied obligations that were never reciprocated. What you are describing is a classic family system with rigid roles, Dr. Morgan explained during an early session. You were assigned the role of provider and fixer, while your sister was given the role of being taken care of. Breaking out of these roles threatens the entire system, which is why the backlash was so severe. With her guidance, I have been working on maintaining my boundaries while processing the grief of losing the family relationship I had always hoped for but never truly had. It has not been easy, but it has been necessary. The financial freedom has been unexpectedly liberating. Without the constant drain of family emergencies, I have been able to plan a summer vacation for Dylan and me, our first real vacation that wasn't just visiting relatives. We're going to spend a week at a beach resort with swimming pools and kids' activities. Dylan talks about it constantly. His excitement is a daily reminder that I made the right decision. I also started the home renovation project I had been postponing for years. Nothing extravagant, just updating our worn kitchen cabinets and replacing the stained carpet in the living room with hardwood floors. Creating a home that feels truly ours, not just a place we inhabit between work and school. The first crack in the family silence came 6 weeks after our confrontation. A letter arrived. Not an email or text, but an actual handwritten letter from Vanessa. I sat on my back porch with a cup of tea, steeling myself before opening it. Dear Carolyn, it began. Tyler and I have postponed our wedding. After our family meeting, he had a lot of questions about our financial situation and expectations. We have been having long talks about priorities and values that have not always been comfortable. She went on to acknowledge, albeit somewhat grudgingly, that she had been oblivious to Dylan's surgery and health challenges. I realize I have not been the kind of aunt I should have been, she wrote. I cannot change the past, but I am trying to think more about how my choices affect others. It was not exactly a profound apology, but coming from Vanessa, it was significant. She closed by saying she was not asking for anything, just opening a door to possibly rebuild some kind of relationship in the future. I wrote back a brief, polite note, thanking her for the letter and expressing hope that her conversations with Tyler would lead to a stronger foundation for their marriage. I didn't rush to forgive or pretend everything was resolved, but I did leave the door open a crack. A week after that exchange, a birthday card arrived for Dylan from my parents. Inside was a gift certificate to a local toy store and a note saying they would like to take him out for ice cream sometime if that would be okay with me. No demands, no guilt trips, just a small olive branch. I showed it to Dylan, who was excited about both the gift card and the ice cream offer. Can I see Grandma and Grandpa? He asked, his eyes hopeful. We will see, I told him. Maybe we can meet them for ice cream next weekend. Just for a little while. I am proceeding cautiously with these tentative reconnections. Dr. Morgan has helped me develop a framework for limited, controlled interactions that allow me to test whether real change is possible without exposing myself or Dylan to further harm. Meanwhile, I've been building a different kind of support system. My work friends have become more like real friends since I shared some of what I was going through. 2 colleagues and I now have a standing monthly dinner date where we take turns watching each other's children. Miss Jenkins from next door has become something of a surrogate grandmother to Dylan. She takes him gardening and has been teaching him to bake. He proudly brought home chocolate chip cookies last week that they had made together, saving the biggest one for me. Dylan himself has shown remarkable resilience through all of this. Children are perceptive. He knew something was wrong with our family dynamics long before I explicitly addressed it. Recently, as I was tucking him in, he asked a question that caught me off guard. Mommy, is it okay not to give someone something, even if they really want it? I sat on the edge of his bed, considering how to respond. Yes, buddy. It's okay to say no, even to people you care about, if what they're asking for isn't right for you to give. Why do you ask? Joey at school wanted me to give him my new action figure, and he said, "Best friends always share everything." But I didn't want to give it to him because it was special to me. Was that okay? I hugged him close. That was absolutely okay. Real friendship isn't about taking things from each other. It's about respecting each other and caring about each other's feelings. He nodded seriously. That's what I thought. I told Joey we could play with it together at recess, but it would stay my toy. He got mad at first, but then he was okay. In that moment, I realized my son was already learning the lesson it had taken me 34 years to grasp. Healthy relationships require boundaries, and love without respect is not really love at all. The journey ahead will not be easy. Family patterns do not change overnight, and there may be more confrontations and difficult conversations to come. But for the first time in my adult life, I feel free to define my own worth outside of my utility to others. I am building a life based on genuine connection rather than obligation, and showing Dylan what healthy relationships really look like. The money I once might have sent for Vanessa's wedding dress is now in Dylan's college fund. The emotional energy I once spent managing my family's crises is now invested in building a joyful life with my son and nurturing friendships that flow both ways. Sometimes, the most profound act of love is not giving people what they ask for, but showing them where the boundaries must stand. Money cannot buy family loyalty, but protecting your peace is truly priceless. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who were taking advantage of you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know how you handled it. And please, like and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult family situations. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to prioritize their own well-being. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, you deserve relationships that add to your life, not drain it.